April is Autism Acceptance Month. Do you know someone with autism? We're becoming more aware of it, and we're becoming more aware of it when it comes to the needs of neurodiverse people in general. But of course, still a long way to go.
And a person's language and cultural background shouldn't be a barrier to understanding autism. With that in mind, some free resources are being made available to you or anyone who wants it. It's all about spreading the word and acceptance in a range of languages.
Craig Smith is a local man who's been doing this work with the autism support organisation Positive Partnerships. Morning, Craig.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Jenny.
Why did you want to create resources in other languages?
I think, as you just noted, we're all about inclusion, all about the message getting out there as much as possible. And we thought we want to make sure that there are evidence-informed, good resources out there that break through myths, perhaps, and different ideas about autism that could be written in a way that is easily translatable and available to as many parts of our communities as possible. So we've now got 22 different languages that are represented on our website, which is fantastic.
So you have written fact sheets, but also some animated videos as explainers. I want to know a bit more about the messages, but let's hear how that animation sounds. This is a taste of it in English.
What is autism? Autistic people are part of every culture and community throughout Australia and around the world. Many cultures and communities, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, don't have a word to describe autism in their language. In New Zealand, Maori people recently shared their way of talking about people on the spectrum, which they describe as taki waitanga, which means in his or her own time and space.
Which is beautiful in itself. Let's hear some of the same information being shared alongside the same animated images, but spoken in Somali.
Waa maxay autismku? Dadka autistiga ah waa qayb ka mid ah dhaqan kasta iyo bulsho kasta oo Australian ah iyo dhammaan adduunka oo dhan. Bulshooyin iyo dhaqamo badan oo ay ku jiraan bulshooyinka Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander may lahaa erey ay ku sharxaan autismka afkooda.
So that's a bit of how these animations sound. Craig, did you learn that there was an issue with people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds accessing that information?
That's been shared with us over many years, that there's a real need for when families who might receive a diagnosis and maybe go to their local GP, and they might be from communities where they're not necessarily in access to a lot of information in their language about autism, and maybe the health professionals they're talking to don't have that information as well. So it's been fed back to us and to others at workshops and through different correspondence that there is a real need for this. And we've had resources in the past that have been translated into a number of languages, but never as many as we have now.
The information that they get now is better than it was 10 years ago. Correct information is always key with any diagnosis for our own bodies and health, but has misinformation been a big problem?
Absolutely, it has. And sometimes it can be to do with just the way that even words like autism are translated. And like we heard then, there are some languages that don't have a word or don't have a way of explaining autism in their language, or it can come across in different ways. So there have been absolutely myths that maybe have been passed on, that there has been a real need to start to get some good evidence-informed practice that can help to solve that. We work with different groups. We've got an autistic advisory group, which is made up of autistic adults across Australia who share with us a lot of their lived experience, the most recent research, and as well we work with different members of diverse communities to make sure that we've got authentic language translations and representations across a range of different spaces there as well.
And those resources are free now on the Positive Partnerships website. Craig, it is intentionally being called Autism Acceptance Day rather than Autism Awareness Day. What have you heard from the people you work with about why that language is important?
It's definitely changed. I'm thinking, I've talked in past years on this program about autism, and it's interesting just how much each time I come on, the language has evolved. And it did go from being a United Nations day, which was World Autism Awareness Day, but the autistic community shared that they said it's not so much about awareness. There is a lot of awareness of autism now, but is it maybe more about acceptance and accepting autism and getting a sense that it's out there, and we want to value the lived experience that people have rather than just being conscious of it being out there. We want to actually accept it and value it.
We had Grace Tame in our city on Friday night. She joined us on the show on Thursday morning. How important is it to have people like former Australians of the Year, comedians and TV personalities like M. Rusciano speaking up and saying, I have autism and this is how I am, this is who I am, and just sort of giving us a sense of life for them?
It's hugely important. And I can remember some years ago when I started to go to autism conferences and autistic adults would turn up. And I can remember one saying, I'm really surprised that there are non-autistic people here. I thought this was an autism conference for people with autism to talk about autism, and I feel like one of the only autistic people here. I think we've moved into a time where it's been less about people talking about autism and people with autism who are autistic talking about their own lived experience. And as you say, with Grace and others, and I've been reading some of the poetry of Les Murray recently, who was very reflective and open about his own autistic experiences. We sort of came from a period where autism was not considered to be something where those on the spectrum had a lot to share of their interior world, but now we know that's completely not true. There's a massive wealth of internal information and lived experience that can be shared and learned from, and I think that's hugely important.
You have worked with autistic children in school settings and others through your career. I'm interested to know not just what you've learned professionally, because clearly you learn a lot through a career like that, but what have you learned personally from working with children in that environment?
I've learned just how funny so many of our kids are and what a wonderful sense of humour they've got. Such a wealth of kindness and empathy. And I think going back to the top of our conversation, which was a bit about the sort of myths and things that get broken, I think you just have to spend a week or two in classrooms with autistic students to realise how many of the things that people tell you, like I can remember when I first started, people would say now the kids, they won't have empathy for things, they won't care about others' feelings, they won't want to hug you, they'll be all... And you go in and it's the complete opposite. They're the most empathic, kind, sensitive, and different. Every single child is different, and I think those are the things that you quickly pick up and learn when you spend time with children, with adults, and it just enriches the variance of people out there that we learn and work with.
Craig, thank you for coming in and talking to us not just about Autism Acceptance Day, but about these new resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Craig Smith, a local man with the autism support organisation Positive Partnerships. Check out those resources online.